I still remember the smell of that doctor's office. It was that sharp, medicinal scent of bleach and latex that sticks to the back of your throat. I sat there on a plastic chair that creaked every time I breathed, staring at a framed poster of a human cell on the wall. I'm Emmett. For most of my life, I've been the guy who followed the map. I'm a high school history teacher. I value facts, timelines, and the belief that if you're a good man, good things happen to you. The doctor walked in with a heavy sigh. He just handed me a manila folder. "I'm sorry, Emmett," he said. "The tests are conclusive. Due to the complications from that surgery you had as a child, your sperm count is 0. Biologically, you cannot father a child." I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. For 2 years, Maren and I had been trying. I had spent every night for 700 days blaming myself, asking why my body was failing the woman I loved. And now I had the answer. It wasn't a temporary glitch. It was a dead end. I was the end of my family line. I drove home through the suburbs of Charlotte. I kept thinking about Maren, my beautiful, ambitious, radiant Maren. She wanted a family more than she wanted her next promotion. How was I supposed to tell her that the one thing she craved was the one thing I could never give her? When I pulled into our driveway, I saw her car was already there. Usually she stayed late at the office working on mergers with her boss Xander, but today the house was glowing. Maren was standing by the kitchen island, her hair perfectly curled. "Emmett," she whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. She didn't wait for me to speak. She just slid a small white box across the marble countertop. "Open it." My hands shook as I lifted the lid. Inside was a pair of tiny hand-knitted baby booties. Beside them lay a plastic stick with 2 clear, undeniable pink lines. "I'm pregnant," she cried, throwing her arms around my neck. "We did it, Emmett. It's a miracle. We finally did it." The world tilted on its axis. The paper in my pocket felt like it was burning a hole through my skin. 0 motility. 0 count. Permanent. This wasn't a miracle. This was a crime scene. I looked down at the back of her head and I realized that every "I love you" was a calculated move in a game I didn't even know we were playing. "Are you happy?" she asked. I'm in shock," I managed to choke out. I can't believe it." Mentioning her boss's name, Xander, was like a spark hitting gasoline. I sat through that dinner. I watched her talk about nursery colors. The betrayal wasn't just the sex. It was the fact that she thought I was stupid enough to raise another man's child while he stayed tucked away in his glass office. No, I wasn't going to let her win. I stood up and walked over to our shared desk. I typed in her password. I went straight to the cloud backup. I scrolled through months of boring office photos until I hit a folder labeled Project Alpha. I tried X100. The folder clicked open. My breath hitched. It was a digital diary of my own destruction. Screenshots of text messages between her and Xander. Messages where they mocked my traditional values. And then I saw a video file. I didn't want to watch it, but I clicked play. It was a video from 3 months ago. Xander's voice was off camera. "What about Emmett?" he asked. "Emmett?" Maren laughed. "He's a sweetheart, Xander. He'll be the perfect dad. He's so desperate for a kid, he'll believe anything I tell him. He's my safety net." I closed the laptop slowly. The man who had walked into this house an hour ago was gone. I walked into the kitchen. The baby booties were still sitting on the counter. I didn't throw them away. Instead, I tucked one into my pocket right next to the doctor's report. I started to climb the stairs one heavy step at a time, heading toward the bedroom where my wife waited with her beautiful lethal lies. The wood of the banister felt slick under my palm as I reached the landing. Every creak of the floorboard seemed to echo like a heartbeat, but I moved with a strange, newfound precision. I entered the bedroom just as Maren was stepping out of the ensuite bathroom, wrapped in a fluffy white robe, her skin flushed from the heat of the water. She looked radiant, the very picture of maternal bliss, and for a split second, the sheer audacity of her performance made me want to laugh. "You look like you've seen a ghost, Emmett," she said. Her touch felt like a burn. "Just a long day," I replied, my voice coming out steady, a perfect imitation of the husband she thought she could control. The next 48 hours were a blur of calculated normalcy. While she spent her Sunday scrolling through luxury crib designs, I was beginning the digital excavation of our lives. I didn't go to work on Monday. I called in sick, parked my car 3 blocks away, and walked back to the house to ensure she had left for the office. I needed a ghost in the machine. I called Nash. We'd been friends since our freshman year at Duke. He was the guy who could find a needle in a haystack if the needle was a hidden bank account. I didn't say a word. I just pushed the doctor's report and a printed transcript of the Project Alpha messages across the table. Nash read them in silence. "We aren't just going for a divorce, are we?" "I want them to feel the floor drop out from under them," I said. "I want to know every cent Xander has moved. I want the dirt that his board of directors would fire him for." Nash nodded. "Give me access to your home network and her cloud credentials. If they've been using company devices for their little secret, they've left a trail a mile wide." For the next week, I lived a double life. By day, I was with Nash watching as he unraveled a web of financial deceit. It turned out Maren hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been a willing accomplice in Xander's shell game. He'd been using her department to overbill vendors, siphoning the excess into an offshore account that Maren had access to. By night, I was the doting, expectant father. She suggested Julian if it was a boy. I almost choked on my water. Julian was Xander's middle name. The sheer arrogance of it was breathtaking. I realized then that she didn't just lack a conscience, she lacked a soul. To her, I wasn't a person. I was a utility, a credit score. "How are you holding up?" Nash asked over an encrypted call. "I'm fine," I said. I spent years thinking I was the weak one because I couldn't give her what she wanted. Now I realize I'm the only one in this house who actually knows what strength looks like. "We found the Napa Valley files," Nash said. "I've got GPS logs, hotel folios, and a video Maren took of Xander laughing about how you probably spent the weekend grading papers while he was grading her." I felt a surge of adrenaline, cold and sharp. I spent my afternoons moving my own assets. I was stripping the ship of everything valuable before I let it hit the iceberg. One evening, Maren came home early clutching a sonogram photo. She pinned it to the refrigerator. "Look at him, Emmett. Can you believe this is ours?" I walked over and stared at the grainy black and white image. To me, it was a photograph of a betrayal. "It's a miracle, Maren." I said, my voice barely a whisper. She had no idea that I was recording her. Every lie was being time-stamped and stored. As the days crawled toward the gala, I waited until she went into the walk-in closet. I slipped her phone out of her purse. I installed the final piece of software, a mirror sync that would broadcast her screen directly to my laptop. Just as I slid the phone back, a message lit up the screen from Xander counting down the days until the gala. "You'll be the most beautiful woman in the room, and everyone will think that idiot husband of yours is the luckiest man alive. Little do they know." I didn't feel the sting this time. I dialed Nash. The mirror is live, I said. Start the countdown. I don't just want them exposed, Nash. I want them to realize they're losing everything while they're standing on stage being cheered. The wind on the balcony felt like a cold blade against my skin, but I welcomed the bite. To the neighbors, we were the golden couple in House 402. To me, we were two actors waiting for the curtain to rise on a tragedy she didn't know I had rewritten. I turned back into the room just as she hung up. She was glowing a term that used to fill me with warmth, but now made my stomach churn with a visceral, acidic bile. The gala is in 3 days, Emmett, she said. Our debut, our miracle announcement. I'm sure Xander will be thrilled. I replied the name, tasting like copper in my mouth. Nash had hit pay dirt. Emmett, you need to see this, he whispered. It was a series of ledger entries from Xander's firm. The money flowed into a holding company called Siren's Reach, the owner, Maren. They weren't just sleeping together, Nash said. Xander was siphoning millions using Maren's department to authorize the payments. He thought if the feds ever came knocking, he could blame a rogue employee, your wife. I stared at the numbers. The pregnancy wasn't just a way to keep me quiet. It was the ultimate insurance policy. Friday night, I said, I want it all to hit the big screen during his keynote speech. Friday arrived with a heavy gray sky. I met with my lawyer, Mrs. Vance. The moment the news breaks tonight, my team will file for an emergency freeze on your joint assets. It's going to be a bloodbath. Good, I said. By 7 p.m., I was adjusting my tuxedo. Maren walked in wearing a floor-length emerald gown. Tonight is going to change everything for us. I can feel it. You have no idea, I murmured. The gala was held at the Grand Marquis. Maren was scanning the room for him, and there he was. Xander. Emmett, good to see you. Xander boomed, clapping a hand on my shoulder, the same hand that had touched my wife while I was at home grading papers. Maren tells me you two have some big news tonight. We do, Xander, I said, holding his gaze until he was the one to blink. It's a miracle, isn't it? The kind of thing you just don't see coming. The evening proceeded like a slow-motion car crash. I watched them exchange glances. They were so confident, so untouchable. They thought they had won. At 9 p.m., the lights dimmed. Xander took the stage, beginning a speech about legacy and trust. Behind the scenes, Nash was already in the system. I looked at Maren, who was standing at the front of the crowd, her hand resting protectively over her stomach. Xander reached the climax. I want to invite one of our brightest stars to the stage. Maren, please come up. We have a special announcement. A legacy of growth and new beginnings. The crowd began to applaud. Before Maren joins us, Xander said, gesturing to the giant 40-foot screen, I want to share a short tribute. A look at the Project Alpha results. The screen flickered, but instead of corporate graphs, a grainy video filled the glass. It was the Napa Valley hotel room. The audio kicked in. Emmett, he's a sweetheart, Xander. He'll be the perfect dad. He'll believe anything I tell him. The room went silent. I watched Maren freeze on the second step of the stage. The video transitioned to a split screen, the medical report showing permanent azoospermia on the left and the Siren's Reach bank transfers on the right. Then came the final blow, a recording of Xander's voice. Once the brat is born and the audit is over, we'll dump the history teacher. He's just a placeholder, Maren. The gasps from the board members were like a wave hitting the shore. Xander turned around, his face going a sickly gray ash. I walked slowly through the parted crowd. I stopped at the foot of the stage, looking up at the two people who had dismantled my soul. Maren turned around. The glow was gone. Her eyes searched mine, looking for the sweetheart. But she didn't find him. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the tiny white baby booty she had given me. I held it up for a second, then let it drop onto the floor. "The placeholder is done, Maren," I said. Xander tried to speak, but security was already moving in. The board chairman was already on his cell phone promising years of prison time. I didn't wait for Maren to scream or beg. I pushed open the heavy oak doors and stepped out into the night. I didn't look back at the wreckage. I just kept walking, pulling the final set of papers from my inner pocket, the ink still fresh. The cold night air hit my face like a splash of ice water, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I could actually breathe without feeling a phantom weight on my chest. I looked down at the divorce papers in my hand. These weren't just legal documents. They were my ticket back to the land of the living. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a man who had finally cut out a malignant tumor, exhausted but finally clean. I walked toward my car, the shouting from inside the marquee fading into a dull hum. My phone buzzed. It was Nash. "Emmett, the board just issued a formal statement to the feds." His voice crackled. "Xander is being detained for questioning, and Maren, internal security, escorted her out. She's currently sitting on a curb in her emerald dress waiting for an Uber that's never coming because I've already flagged her accounts. She's frozen, man." "Thanks, Nash," I said, "for everything." "Don't thank me yet," Nash said. "The legal battle is going to be a long one, especially with the pregnancy involved. But the prenup, the one with the strict infidelity and moral turpitude clause, it's holding up. She's going to walk away with exactly what she brought into this marriage, nothing." I sat in the driver's seat staring at the dashboard. I thought about the man I was when I thought I was becoming a father. It's funny how life works, isn't it? Now I want to ask you guys something. Some of my friends told me I went too far. They said that exposing her pregnancy in front of 300 people was cruel to the child. Others say that Maren and Xander were the ones who used that child as a weapon first. What do you think? Did I cross a line or did I just balance the scales? Let me know in the comments. I'm reading every single one of them tonight. And if you've ever survived a betrayal, hit that subscribe button. The following months were a blur of depositions and empty rooms. I sold the house in Charlotte. I moved to a small town on the coast, a place where no one knew me as the sterile history teacher. I took a job at a local community college. It pays less, but the silence is worth more than any corporate bonus. Maren tried to call me once about 3 months after the gala. I didn't pick up, but she left a voicemail. Her voice was stripped of all its silk and polish. She talked about the legal fees and how Xander's lawyers were blaming everything on her. She begged me to think of the baby. I deleted the message. It wasn't that I was hateful. It was that I was indifferent. The woman who left that message wasn't my wife. My wife was a ghost I had buried the night of the gala. As for the child, I truly hope that kid finds a way to be better than the people who created it. But that isn't my burden to carry. I spent this afternoon sitting on a pier watching the tide come in. For years I thought I was less than because of a medical report. I let Maren treat me like a placeholder because I didn't think I deserved to be the main character. But as I watched the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a quiet sense of power. I'm starting over at 40. I have a small apartment, a stack of books, and a future that is entirely 100% mine. No more actors, no more scripts, just the truth. I'm Emmett. I'm a history teacher. And today I finally started writing a history that I can actually be proud of. Before I go, I have one last question for you. If you found out your entire life was a lie tomorrow, would you have the courage to burn it all down to find the truth? Or would you keep living the pretty lie just to stay comfortable? Think about it, and thank you for listening to my story. The view from the end is finally starting to look beautiful. Stay strong out there.